February 3rd, 2026, believe it or not. And I'd like to call to order the meeting of the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors. And we'll start with our invocation. Tim, wherever you're at, and Joel.
You to somebody new in our rotation, new to Hudson. If you're familiar with Pastor Randy Simonson from Harvest Time Church, Randy has retired and he's moved on, and Joel Jones, who's here with me tonight, will be pastoring the Harvest Time Outreach Church, and he's agreed to join our rotation in Randy's place. So I'll turn it over to Joel.
Thanks, Tim. How you guys doing? Good evening. So real quick, I'm actually originally from Houston, Texas. I feel like I have to tell people that because if you hear the y'alls, you might be like, where is this guy from, right? But I came up here, I was married into the Midwest, so I've been up here now for 6 years, and I feel like I've gotten used to the winter a little bit. Still working on it, just a little bit. I've gotten used to it so much that now I can acknowledge that today was balmy, right? It was a heat wave. But it was a good reminder that there are a lot of seasons in our lives, right? And seasons in our community, seasons in our country. And there's a lot of times when it's really cold and a lot of times when it's really dark. But there's always those warm days ahead, right? There's always that resolution. And we serve a good God who always provides that peace and that comfort. And he's looking out for us, and he's just so good. On days like today, I'm reminded of his goodness. So if we can go ahead and pray, we'll get this started. Dear Lord, thank you so much for who you are, God. We love you so much. We're so blessed by you. We know that you're here in everything, Lord. And the cold days, on the dark days, on the warm days, on the days where we see your light, Lord, you're here all the time. We just pray today for this meeting. We pray for our leaders. We pray for a sense of unity, Lord, some wisdom, Lord, and direction, Lord. And we just pray that you would guide them, Father, in all their conversations and everything that they're doing, Lord. We pray also that they wouldn't forget any of the people they represent here, Lord, that we would think of the little guy. We'd think of those who are less fortunate than us, Lord, in all capacities, whether it be with the county or with the church or even just our own communities, Lord, that we would never forget the people that you look at, Lord, the widows and the orphans. God, that we would just play our part in loving on those people. We give you this day. We're so, like I said, we're so glad to be here, Lord. We give you this day. It's your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As for our roll call tonight, all supervisors are present and accounted for with the following exceptions. Supervisor Barkalow and Swanepoel are absent and excused, and Supervisor Adams is joining us remotely. And of course, District 2 remains vacant until the election. Okay, we're ready for public comment. I have a couple cards here. We'll start out with Hugh Gwynn. I believe Hugh still wanted to make a couple comments. Hugh?
If you want to wait until after Judge Nordstrand speaks.
Okay, yep, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, Bruce Lenson. Bruce?
Good evening, Chair and all you members. My name is Bruce Lenson. I'm the owner of the Railroad Properties of Hudson. And thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here regarding item number 4 on your agenda, a resolution opposing a rezoning request currently pending before the Village of North Hudson. I respectfully want to clarify that the information provided to the Community Development Committee, which led to this resolution, was incorrect. The property in question was mistakenly labeled conservancy in the 1970s. Despite the fact that it was still an active railroad at the time. The error was recently discovered by the Village of North Hudson, and with the assistance of the St. Croix County staff, it was identified and corrected. The correct zoning has always been commercial industrial, and the village corrected the zoning map at the last meeting. This evening, I believe, the Village of North Hudson will be voting on whether to rezone the property from commercial industrial to residential. The change would allow the opportunity to create additional housing in North Hudson, and which would result in increased property tax revenue, benefit not only to the village, but also St. Croix County and the Hudson School District. As I have stated publicly for the last 2 years, an important part of this development plan is providing community access to the St. Croix River. I've already granted the village access on the property for public safety, and for the past 3 years, I have allowed public access from the north side of the property, an area that has been inaccessible for 40 years. As I move forward with the development planning in the upcoming months, I hope that St. Croix County will work collectively with me, along with the City of Hudson and the village, to create a development that benefits all involved. For these reasons, I respectfully ask the board not to accept this resolution, as it is not in the best interest of all the parties. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next up we have Celeste Coburl. Celeste?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Celeste Coburl. I live in the town of Hudson on Lake Malilu, where we've had our home for over 30 years. I did submit written public comments, and I gave you a print copy open to this map page because a picture's worth 1,000 words. The parcel that Mr. Lenzen spoke about is the one that's outlined in aqua on this map, which is from the county GIS data. For reference, the land area of that parcel is only approximately 100 feet wide. All of the parcels that abut the aqua one on both the St. Croix side and the landward side toward Lake Malilu are publicly owned. St. Croix County is an owner, in part or in whole, of the parcels that abut Mr. Lenzen's Trestle Bridge property. The Village of North Hudson has not yet acted on Mr. Lenzen's request that it be rezoned. It's doubtful that they will act on it tonight because the matter was not properly noticed. The wrong PIN number was put in the public notice and in the action item, and it was not corrected 24 hours in advance of tonight's meeting. Also, an attorney representing a number of homeowners in the Village of North Hudson today submitted a letter to the Village of North Hudson outlining other procedural errors which invalidate previous actions the village has taken to adopt its new comprehensive plan and also to approve rezoning Mr. Lenzen's north parcel. But nevertheless, what the south parcel is zoned now is irrelevant. The Village of North Hudson ordinances regarding rezoning decisions say that the Board of Trustees is to, quote, properly evaluate the proposal and protect the interests of neighbors, the general public, and the village. In this instance, St. Croix County is a neighboring property owner whose interests are supposed to be protected. As I outlined in my written comment, rezoning this property to allow residential development harms rather than protects the interests of St. Croix County. One of the major interests is that on that skinny little parcel along the St. Croix River is the dam that creates Lake Malilu. And you can tell from the scale that that parcel is very, very narrow. As a practical matter, any residential development on the land area of the Trestle Bridge property would interfere with making the timely major repairs and eventual removal and replacement of that Lake Malilu Dam. And that is going to have to be done. There simply is not any area, not a big enough area for equipment, for materials, for storage, for work staging, or even doing the work to eventually do major repairs and replace that dam. I provided a history of flooding and dam failures on Lake Malilu and on the Willow River. It is not speculative to know that the county, as 50% owner of that parcel and that dam, will at some point, probably in the not too far distant future, have to use the Trestle Bridge property land area in order to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare. In addition, I'll wrap up. In addition, the county has identified significant interests in its adopted comprehensive plan to have intergovernmental cooperation with the Village of North Hudson to protect important natural resources. That area is mapped as a primary environmental corridor. It's identified as an area that is to be preserved and protected from negative development impacts. It's also a flood zone, and it is an area where the county's comprehensive planning and that of all of the other municipalities, City of Hudson and the Village of North Hudson, have said the area should eventually be turned into a public park. So for those reasons, I ask you to adopt the resolution to communicate to the Village of North Hudson that this zoning, if approved, would harm the county's interests as a neighboring property owner. Thank you.
I didn't receive any other public comment cards. Anyone else like to speak from the public? Any public comment? Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda, the consent agenda. Is there any items on the consent agenda anyone from the board would like to pull out as separate items? Seeing none, can we have a motion for the consent agenda? Motion to approve by Supervisor Burning, second by Supervisor Van Summeren.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I neglected to give County Administrator his requested few minutes to get the voting set up. How quickly we forget.
I forgot to do it before the meeting, so now I have to do it in front of everyone. All right, we're good.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to a final report on the Government Center construction project. Big sigh of relief.
Good evening. So we added 142,000 square feet to this building. We expanded the current facility to improve the functionality and support future growth, and added additional conference room space, and the secure hallway for transporting the inmates behind the courtrooms, some additional flex space, and the sheriff's office that got quite large. Our budget, April of 2022, we got a $80 million bond that we sold, and then the project was the $79.4 million, and we were under budget by $150,000.
And that number might go up, Taylor?
Yeah, that number should go up. So this started in 2021 with a space needs study. The design phase was March of 2022 through December. And then we started the site preparation in December of 2022, and then the inside structural work or outside structural work, and then the interior work. And like there was many different phases to this for the inside work. Moving phases, we started with the north addition. My department got to move first. And then we moved the sheriff's up to second floor, which would be the new child support area for their temporary location. Jury assembly was opened at that time, and then we had to remove all the storage files and whatnot out of the basement, out into warm storage, and then some over to the Ag Center. And then we started with the admin move. That was I think it was a Friday move. Went into Saturday, and we moved pretty much all of everybody on first floor over to this new south addition. And then from there, we moved the judges. Judges and clerk of court moved down to first, their new location, along with probate and their judicial assistants. And then the court commissioners also moved to first floor. The DAs moved in with register of probate. No, district court moved in with the register of probate in one of their conference rooms. And then the district attorneys moved in the back hallway where the judges' chambers were. And then the final move was moving the DAs to their new space, victim witness to their new space. Court commissioners moved up, and then the district court got to move down into his new space. So a lot of moving parts. Some additional scope items we added on the clinic, the DOC, Sheriff's Memorial, dispatch had an expansion. We added a secondary chiller and cooling tower, install of the 2 megawatt generator, and then we had to upgrade the electrical and gas services into the building. Here's some pictures. You've probably seen these before. The top left is, right, when we started the south addition, this is all of the south addition. This is the courtrooms. You can see as they change. I don't know, we had over 3,000 pictures to go through, so to pick through, some of these pictures, and then you see some with like the studded walls and whatnot. It's like, well, how do you know what area is that for? So I just tried to keep it somewhat the areas that you guys know. That's the main entrance, and then that would be treasurer's area, and then you have community development. And then this is some overviews of the building. I'd like to give a big thanks to Samuel's group, HCM and KFI, the IT department. They were with us every step of every department move. Jim Ellsbury, he's the one that kind of kicked this off. Chris Boss was a project manager. My department, it just every day was something different. And the St. Croix County staff as a whole, how many meetings we went through to make sure that their areas were what they needed. And then obviously I need to thank you guys. Without you guys, this wouldn't have happened. Any questions or comments or?
Any questions for Taylor? Supervisor Counter.
Well, one business question. Was there any, one of the things that we had talked about during the process was there was potential for some ARPA dollar transfers for some of the mechanicals. Did that take place, and did that have an impact on our price?
Yes, and that's actually not reflected because it's really just an inter-fund within the KIP. And so it's just a reallocation. It's the same money in the same bucket. And it's just which side you're pushing it to.
Okay.
But yeah, we did allocate some of the ARPA dollars to cover some of the project costs. But it's still included in the same 79.4 million.
Perfect, thank you. One other, I did get a lot of positive comments, especially during the tax season, on the efficiency and the layout in the new area here. A lot of people that I spoke with had very positive feelings about how the layouts were and the ability to get in and short pathways, and so want to give a kudos on the design part, and I especially want to do a reach out to Jim Ellsbury, Chris Boss, and Taylor. Awesome job on this whole project and keeping tabs on everything, keeping us on track, on budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
I've always appreciated a guy who, when he says something, you should listen because he only says the things that matters. And Taylor, you're that guy. I'm really glad that you're there. I'm glad that you have this department and that you're there working hard for all of us in the county. Taxpayers are lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Fiedler.
Picking up on what Supervisor Hanson said, there's another very modest guy in the room, and that's the fellow that chaired from the county board's perspective, the construction efforts and attended so many meetings and read so many memos and toured the building so many times. And of course, I'm talking about Supervisor Counter. And he just did a mammoth, hundreds of hours of work on this to be supportive of Taylor and everybody else. And so just hats off to Supervisor Counter for all your efforts on that behind the scenes.
I'll just add that the fact that this project came in on time and under budget is absolutely remarkable. And having been really,
Thank you. Thanks.
and it's a government project. But having been involved in this from day one, I have to say that I am extremely proud of the result and the outcome. And I'm so proud that this building and this facility will serve the citizens of this county for many, many years to come. So congratulations to you, Taylor, and everyone else involved. Anyone else comments or questions other than what happens to the excess funds?
It stays in the KIP and it'll be used for additional capital improvement projects.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our county administrator's report. Ken?
Yeah, thank you. One thing that I wanted to point out, there's been a lot of talk or questions about the status of it, and that's that solar project, JDA. So Otolis Law did finally get us a draft of that. Staff have reviewed that. We're going to get those comments back to Otolis. The plan, I don't know if we'll make it or not, but the plan is to get it in front of community development and potentially the county board before your terms are up. But we'll see. Sometimes that legal stuff can take a while, right, Heather? Right. Yeah. And then the only other thing from my report, it's actually not in the report, but I was going to point out, there is a lot of birthdays on the county board. There's 3 county board supervisors that have birthdays this week. We have a department head that has a birthday this week, and my wife has a birthday sometime this week. So don't worry, I have it written down, though. So. Supervisor Hanson.
When we're looking at spreadsheets and you start talking about birthdays, I don't know, Ken. What's going on here? I'm just teasing you.
Supervisor Bernie.
I have a question regarding personnel, and I should have given you a heads up, so my apologies, Mr. Administrator. But there's 16 current position recruitments, so which means we have 16 vacancies. How long have those vacancies been around? And you don't have to, if you don't know it right off the top of your head, I just would like that data at some point.
Yeah, most of these, other than some of the ones that are recurring vacancies, like CNAs, I mean, we're pretty much under a constant recruitment for CNAs. So positions like that are constantly out there. We have primary service deputies and corrections officers that are frequent flyers. So they're not constant, but fairly often repeated. The other ones, though, are relatively new, haven't been out very long. We did finally fill the highway engineer, so that was important. Do you have something to add, Leif? Got to come up to the podium if you want to talk. So Leif Larson is our benefit specialist within HR, but he's our HR representative for this evening. He is our Audrey tonight.
I just thought I'd mention, we had a handful of retirements right at the end of the year, so that's also adding to that total. I think we had 3 or 4 retirements at the end of December and early January, so that's also adding to that total. And again, obviously they're still working their way through the process.
Yeah, so actually no long-term ones other than our frequent flyer positions that, we have lots of those positions.
Supervisor Rice.
This topic came up at community development. I thought everyone might appreciate hearing about it, but in your cover memo, you're talking about the automated gates that have been installed at 2 parks to provide more hours of access at lower operating costs. I don't know if you know, Ken, off the top of your head. I know Jason reported on the annual amount of savings we anticipate from that.
Yeah, Jason would have to give you the exact amount. I don't recall what that dollar amount was offhand, but the whole idea behind this project was that we'll be able to reduce personnel cost and actually increase the number of hours that the park is available for the public to use.
Correct. So the new gates are produced by Ventec is the vendor. They're the same gates in that the state parks use, and we put them at Troy Beach and Homestead. 2, because those parks required the most amount of staff because they're our busiest parks and they have limited amounts of parking. And so we had a lot of staff in the windows or just making sure that we had enough parking spots in the park before we let people in. So these gates will monitor the amount of traffic flow and also save basically 2 positions in that for 12 to 14 hours a day that we were normally staffing them. And so the total cost was roughly about $90,000 in that for the installation at Troy Beach, Homestead, and Glen Hills. And we're looking at that we should save that not quite all in 1 year, but it should be about an $80,000 seasonal staffing savings every year. And it's just harder and harder to get seasonal staff that want to come and work for a few months throughout the parks. So, and school is taken and going later in the spring and starts earlier in the fall, it seems like. And so by the time that we get them and that here, we get them trained up and that there's a very small window and that for them to be able to help us out. And so unfortunately that limits the amount of time that people that want to use the parks are able to use the parks. So these gates will extend those hours, not only during the day, but also throughout the actual season. And it will also provide us a mandatory cutoff time so that people can't access our parks after 10 p.m. So hopefully that'll help us with some of the safety and any vandalism, partying, that kind of stuff.
Supervisor Hanson?
Thanks. Ken, I'm just wondering about subtotal for administrative expenses. It looks like red ink, we've got minus 9.36.
So I'm showing the minus 3,463,000. Is that what you're looking at? Yep. So that's the fund balance transfers. When you guys do a fund balance transfer of excess funds, it hits these accounts and it comes out of here. So
So that's an adjustment then, that's not actually an expense?
Yeah, the auditors require us to record it as an expense.
Okay, thank you. Now I understand.
Any other questions for County Administrator? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to our business items. First up is a resolution in support of a Fifth Circuit Court branch in St. Croix County. Do we start with a motion, please? Supervisor Leaf.
I move to support a Fifth Circuit Court branch in St. Croix County.
It's a motion to approve Supervisor Ramberg.
Second.
And who would like to explain this one? Judge Nordstrand? Looks like you're elected.
Not quite yet, but I'm up in April. So thank you for that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Scott Nordstrand. I'm the Circuit Judge for Branch 1 here in St. Croix County. Very proud to serve as one of the judges, and actually the original branch in St. Croix County from 1848 or something. So I'm glad to be here tonight, and I want to thank the County Board for scheduling this resolution on an expedited basis. We have for a long time talked about the need for another judge here someday. In fact, a lot of what Taylor was just talking about has to do with ultimately we added 4 courtrooms. 2 of them admittedly are being used by commissioners, so we've added a net of 2 new court spaces that are available. And in terms of when and how that could happen, let's start there. The legislature authorizes circuit court branches. That's how it's been done since the beginning. Generally speaking, I'll give you one exception in a moment, but generally speaking, the way you get a new judge in the state of Wisconsin is next to the list of counties and judges, St. Croix County has the number 4. The way you get a new judge is you pass a bill that changes the 4 to a 5. That's what happens. And that's the way it has been done for, as I said, for most of our history completely. I think all of our history, except the last time. The last time we added judges in Wisconsin, the legislature worked with Chief Justice Rogansack, I think at the time, to authorize 12 judges that were then it was the task of the state courts director to identify the counties that needed judges. And that was done one time. Obviously, you can imagine that whether or not a county gets a judge could be a fairly political issue in Madison. For that one moment, they separated themselves from politics and they made that decision. And in fact, in our district, our 10th Judicial District, we got a judge in Sawyer County, Dunn County, and Eau Claire County. So 3 judges. But what do you need to do to get a judge now? Well, I think it's safe to say that the political relationships between the courts and the legislature is different than it was in those days, that time. And so basically the legislature's reasserted its authority to say when and where we're going to have another judge. And a bill was actually proposed sort of in the governor's budget to add 2 judges to Brown County. The legislature didn't go along with that. They removed those 2 judges from the budget bill. But Brown County was persistent, and so they proposed. There was some representatives from that area proposed legislation, and we have it now referenced in the resolution, Assembly Bill 514, and there's a Senate version as well. And what it does is it originally added 2 judges in Brown County, and then I suspect to get greater support for their efforts, they added a judge in Kenosha County and in Shawano, Menominee that has a combined circuit branch there. They also added, and I think this is important to understand, they added, 64 assistant district attorneys around the state, all over the state, 41 additional public defenders, assistant public defenders, and a whole bunch of staff for the public defender's office too. In St. Croix County, we were already set to get one ADA, one PD, and one PD staff member to help bolster our efforts here. So that bill was pending in the Assembly Judiciary Committee about 2 weeks ago. Some of you might have heard me comment on that at the CJCC meeting maybe 2-3 weeks ago. And sort of pine that wouldn't it be something if we could get another judge? That bill's probably not going anywhere. Well, that shows what Nordstrand knows, because almost immediately after they had a hearing on the bill, we thought it would just sit there and wait for the judicial workload study that's been in process for a while to see who really needs the judges, et cetera, on a statewide basis. And then we've learned the bill moved. It's now awaiting going to the floor in the Assembly in its current form, and there's a hearing on the Senate version tomorrow. Just so you know how the time frame is shifting here, there are 4 Assembly floor days left in this legislative session before they all go home and work on elections. The Assembly will be done and adjourned in February, this month. So their next 4 days are a week from today, the following Thursday, the following Tuesday, the following Thursday. That's it. On the Senate side, there are 2 floor days left, one in February and one in March. That's when everything will be done, if it's going to be done. So that's our opportunity, and we learned, I've made some inquiries and others made some inquiries after the bill moved, of, okay, the bill moved. Is it possible for St. Croix County to be added? You know, if you don't ask for something, you never get a yes. Well, we have some very persuasive and influential legislators in St. Croix County. We're very lucky in that way. And we have reason for optimism that there could be an amendment, and in fact, St. Croix County could have that 5th branch added to this bill. So there presently are 4 judges in the bill, 2 for Brown County and 2 for those other counties. This would be the 5th judge. We have reason to believe that it could happen. I think that a big part of that will be a resolution from our county board saying not only did we build it, but we support it. That is, adding a 5th judge. We built the courtrooms, and we support adding that 5th judge. Now, why would you do that? First of all, the 3 judges, other than Judge Smestead at this time, his caseload is still ramping up. But the 3 judges you have here in branches 1, 3, and 4 have the highest caseloads of all judges in the entire 10th Judicial District. That's number 1. In terms of population, I think this is really, you can look at a lot of things, and if you look at the caseloads, you can get confused quickly. How many of them are felonies? Is it a county where the DA files a lot of bail jumping charges that ultimately get dismissed? All of these questions, do we have a freeway? How many traffic cases do you wind up with? All of that, well, we've got a lot of cases, but the question really is, ultimately, what's our population and where are we? Our population, as a function of the number of judges, you see we have about 25,000 people for every judge. The average in our district is 16,000 people. In Eau Claire, they have maybe 8,000 people more than we do currently. They have 6 judges, we have 4. Fond du Lac County, approximately the same population as us. They have 5 judges, we have 4. Dunn County, about 50,000 people, they have 3 judges, we have 4. Well, you get the point. We are certainly in the legitimate contender category for another judge. Now, you'd say, well, this sounds like it's going to cost a lot. And there's no question there's costs associated with adding a 5th branch. I don't dispute that. But there are some financial supports. First of all, you don't pay the judge's salary. so that's good. The state pays that. You don't pay the court reporter's salary. The state pays for that. We also have a support payment made by the state government in support of each branch. And presently, it's $402,000 for the 4 of us. For this year, the estimate for 2026 is $480,000. There was a significant increase, so about $120,000 a judge. So that can help offset some of the costs associated with a judicial assistant and additional staffing needs for a branch. But there's no question, there certainly are costs that will be the result of this. In any case, this is really sort of the culmination of what we've been talking about for a lot of years. And this is something that will come along very rarely. This moment in time when there is a bill moving with judges, that may not even happen in the next session, particularly if this bill goes through and passes. The appetite for more judges the next session will probably be lower, just like it was after the 12-judge bill. So this is our chance in time to at least be considered for that 5th judge. Now, you could argue, well, maybe we could get along for now, and why don't we see if we can get another judge in 5 years, 4 years? The problem with that is the timing. We are, as I said, we've got an opportunity right now that probably won't come to pass perhaps for another 7, 8 years. Who knows? And we don't know what it's going to look like then. The number of cases that we have, serious felony cases, is significantly increasing and has significantly increased. And the reality is our position on the border, you know, you want to know how many Minnesotans I deal with in court every day? Do you want to know how many of those possession of meth, dealing meth, all those charges have got Minnesotans and people that we're dealing with who are from Minneapolis and St. Paul and Woodbury and all across the border? A lot. And that's too bad. I wish it weren't the case, but we are where we are, and, you know, we need some help, and I'm just so proud and happy to be able to be here with you and be happy to answer any questions. We've got a few other judges here as well, but if there are any questions about your thoughts, go ahead.
Judge Nordstrand, could you comment on timing? If this were to go through the Assembly and the Senate, when would you anticipate, if we were selected, a judge to actually get sat here?
So that's a good question. The bill provides presently for the 4 judges that are in it. The judges would take office on August of 2027 and 2028. I would recommend, if somebody asked me, that we be in the 2027 block because my election is this year in 2026. I believe Judge Waterman is up in 2028. And since we have only 5 judges, if we get this 5th judge, and we serve 6-year terms, it doesn't really serve any good purpose to have 2 judges up in the same election year. So 2027 would be the perfect place to put that new judge. So the election would be in April of 27, and the judge would take office on August 1st.
Other questions? Okay, let's start with, we do have a motion. Supervisor Bernie.
Yeah, thank you. Glad I keep you ladies on your toes. Okay, so what is this going, how much is this going to impact the county side of having to fund this? Because each budget year we run into constantly, we have to put a lot of work in to get to a budget, and there's obviously going to be some cost to it. So what does this net out or gross out to our county levy having to support a new judge?
I'll take that question, Your Honor, unless you wanted it.
No, I'll pass.
All right. So Judge Nordstrand had talked about the funding, and he's right on target there with what the funding is. So we'd get 120,000 from the state. I anticipate we would need at least 2 positions added, though, to county staff on the county side. So if you count 100,000 per person with wages and benefits kind of as an average, we'd be looking at probably an additional $100,000 of tax levy to support the Fifth Circuit Court.
And so I heard you say that we get a support payment from the state. So is that on top of the judge's salary, the court reporter? That is like almost like a grant to us to help support?
Yes.
Okay.
And it in fact increased in the last legislative session because the legislature is very mindful of needing to provide that support.
Yeah. And so Administrator Witt, with that being said, the dollar amount that you just gave us, the 100,000 for the 2 positions, is that clearly include
Yeah, that's the
counting
net,
this?
that's the net amount.
Okay.
So the gross is 200,000 in expenses, 100,000 of additional state funding, nets out to 100,000 in just real round numbers.
And how do you feel based on the last 2 budgets having to put the amount of work in that we did to find raises for employees, keeping benefits at least as close to where they are? How do you feel about adding this?
Yeah. Well, my methodology with the budget is we always do the things that we have to do. And so if we're awarded a Fifth Circuit Court,
We have to do
we'll
that.
have to do it.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
will find a way that it works.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
Is the money that comes from the state a grant which is applied for each year? Or is that something that is by law given to the various circuits each year? Or, like I said, is something you have to apply for?
No, that's a legislative appropriation. Now, remember, it's not all charity, because a lot of our clerk of court, I don't know where she is, she'd probably tell me about how much of her money goes to the state. And so this is some of that coming back in one form or another. So that's certainly not all charity. But yes, it's a recognition that the state requires the counties to build the courthouse, to provide judicial assistance and other staff support, the clerk of court and all of that, and this is a way for them to pay back. And they do it by branch.
Do we have funds for furniture and fixtures to set that courtroom up? If we get this, and what's the first year that it'll be in full operation then, that we need to be ready for?
August 1 of 2027, if I had my druthers, that judge would be holding court.
We have operational courtrooms right now. I mean, you might need some furniture for the judge's chamber. I'm not sure what happened to all your old furniture.
It's still there.
Is it? Okay. I haven't been to your old chambers lately. So there's that, but we would have time to budget that. August of 27 is a ways out. We would still have KIP time to budget through that process.
Your Honor, will that be an election for that judge, or will that judge be appointed by the governor and then come up for election later?
All of these judges are elected, and that's the normal pattern. There are no appointments. Appointments only happen if there's an election that's happened and a judge has resigned early or been unable to serve.
Other questions? Supervisor Fiedler.
I would just note that when the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee held its hearing on this, Chief Judge Needham spoke eloquently, just as Judge Nordstrom has spoken, in favor of this, and the committee voted 5-0 in favor of this resolution.
Right. I used his notes, actually. So.
Other questions, comments? Okay, ready to vote. The motion on the floor is to approve the resolution in support of a Fifth Circuit Court branch in St. Croix County. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and thank you, Judge Nordstrand. We're going to move on to our second business item, a resolution supporting 2025 Assembly Bill 384 and 2025 Senate Bill 386 relating to the regulation of virtual currency kiosks. Do we start with the motion? Supervisor Leaf?
I move to support the resolution supporting 2025 Assembly Bill 384 and 2025 Senate Bill 386 relating to the regulation of virtual currency kiosks.
And we have a second. Supervisor Van Summeren. Okay, looks like you're ready, Carl.
So the way this came up, we're seeing an increasing number of fraud cases on the crypto ATM machines. They're usually in gas stations next to the regular ATMs. So victims will get called, say you have a warrant, you have to send us money, do it on this crypto machine, and the money is then gone. Most recently, it was $6,000. The victim was out. Our law enforcement did do a warrant to seize the machine, so they ultimately got the cash back out of the machine. But if it doesn't get reported right away, if the victim doesn't realize they've been scammed right away, the money's going to be gone. The ATM, these crypto ATM machines charge anywhere from 10 to 20 or even more %. So you put in $1,000, you get $900, $800 worth of crypto. The company takes a large percentage right away. You can do the same thing for free in your living room from your phone. So I think these machines basically exist because of fraud. I think it's 40-some states have passed legislation to crack down on these crypto machines. I started a conversation with other DAs in the state, and everyone recognizes it's a problem. There's nothing really we can do at the county level, so it's really up to the state legislature to do something. And I had raised this with Heather Amos and Bob Fiedler, and I think Vice Chair Fiedler found that this bill was going through the legislature. So that's how this came about.
Supervisor Leaf.
I'd like to offer an amendment to the resolution. And the amendment would be to add language to line 33 as follows. And encourage the legislature to include consequences for operators who fail to comply with these regulations.
Do we have a second? Supervisor Leaf.
So the reason for adding this additional language is that it came out in our public protection meeting that this legislation needs more teeth and consequences for those that are not, the way things are written in this bill, it really needs to be clarified that and consequences should be given to people that are operating these machines. So anyway, it came up as a concern, so we thought if we added it as a amendment to the resolution here, that it would be that considered more than attaching it as a cover letter to this resolution.
Other questions? I don't know if, okay, Supervisor Counter.
Just wanted to bring up, I took time reviewing the board packet, and on this particular resolution, I had contacted the president for the First National Community Bank and just to pass this, what his thoughts were on this. And speaking with him, he was very much in favor of this particular resolution. He said that the notice is probably the most critical piece in this. He also made comment that it would be nice if it had a little bit more teeth to it. So this, I'm happy that you have that amendment being considered. Overall, though, he felt that this was definitely something we should pursue. He said there's a lot of very professional people that we would consider should know better that get hung by these things and wants us, felt he was very happy that I made the contact to him, and hopes that this passes. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the amendment? Supervisor Lind.
The word consequences, is that clear enough? Does there need to be more than just the word consequences in the amendment? I mean, I don't even know.
We'll talk about it. Corp Counsel can help us.
I did just draft that language on the fly, but based on the conversations in public protection and judiciary, there's probably, penalties, consequences.
Okay.
Either of those words could be used.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? We're ready to vote on the amendment. Can we read that back real quickly, just so we know what we're voting on?
Add language to line 33 as follows, and encourages the legislature to include consequences for operators who fail to comply with these regulations.
Okay, so now we're ready to vote on the amendment to the resolution. And that motion passes 14-2. And we're now ready to vote on the resolution as amended. Any other final comments or questions? Supervisor Burning.
Yeah, so I got a couple concerns, and if the district attorney could come back up. So first of all, blockchain technology, that's what virtual currency is based around. It's a means of being unregulated. There's not really a true way to regulate blockchain technology. So we start putting restrictions on, and to be fair, of course, a bank is going to love restrictions on blockchain technology. So that to me is kind of a moot point. But some questions for you. How many referrals or cases involved in this have happened in St. Croix County in the last, let's say 5 years?
I don't know the numbers. We don't categorize we don't even have a way to run our cases we don't have a drop down to say, show me all the crypto scams. I just know anecdotally from my personal caseload, I get a handful every year. So if you spread that across 9 lawyers, I guess more than a dozen every year.
Okay.
And it's been increasing. I remember this first came up a few years ago at a conference, and I don't think we had any machines in the whole county at that time, so it was a non-issue. But now, I think probably because Wisconsin has been slow to crack down on the crypto machines or ATMs, we're seeing more and more of it because I'm sure the fraudsters are all targeting Wisconsin citizens because it's so unregulated.
Well, and to be fair, they're targeting our seniors specifically who get these calls, and I know this firsthand. I'm not going to share why, but it's really sad to see and listen and hear the stories of how this is happening. But it's not just crypto machines. So what are the dollar losses that you've seen in this? If you could ballpark.
The last one we had was $6,000. The one I had before that was $5,000. I think that's generally around where it is, but then, as soon as they get that first 5,000, there's the second call, hey, we need another 5,000. That's what happened at the last one when they're like, okay, this is clearly, alarm bells went off. But yeah, I think the problem with it is what they used to do before, we'd have the same kind of scams even before we had these crypto ATMs. What they used to do before was the common practice we'd see is they'd have people buy a bunch of Apple gift cards. I think that's probably, one, they'd, have to buy like a bunch of $500 Apple gift cards, and people probably got suspicious, versus if you can get them to go to one ATM and transfer $5,000, it's probably a lot easier to do that quicker. But
And I know retail stores have really cracked down with training and what to watch for from a checkout perspective. So what is the most common scam type that you found?
Warrants, claiming that they have warrants. And the last one, I think they said there'd be higher penalties if the person was pretending to be a police chief, local police chief. I think that one was Baldwin. And then ultimately the victim ended up going to the Baldwin Police Department. They're like, no, we have not contacted you. And they actually, in one of them, they actually convinced the people that they couldn't figure out how to do the machine, and they said they'd give them cash, and they drove here and arrested them when they came to pick up the cash.
Oh, that would have been cool to watch on YouTube or something, right? Anyway, all right. So, and then, generally, is the money, like the money's gone because it's usually cash, right?
Yeah. So the last one,
currency.
Yeah, the last one was the first that we've done this in our county, but other counties have been doing it. Is we basically got a warrant saying law enforcement gets to break into the machine to take, because it's evidence. That money is evidence of a crime. So that they get a warrant to get the money out of the machine, and then law enforcement contacts the company and says, hey, you want us to break your machine, or do you want to come take that money out of there? And we did get the money back in that one because the cash hadn't been picked up yet.
And that was because of how quick?
Yes.
So, okay. And then are we able to catch people, or is this a lot of overseas type
It's a lot of overseas. Or out of state. The last one where they drove here for the cash, they were from Milwaukee. They were illegals from India. They weren't here legally. So
anyway, I don't know. Do we have any type of definitive proof that the operators are part of the scam, or like why is that being stated? Because that seems like pretty wild and pretty bold to say.
I guess, I don't know that I said that.
I don't think anyone stated that, but there was kind of innuendo that they're part of it, and so it's like, do we have identification on who these people are that are putting these in?
We're debating whether or not up or down to add a line to the original resolution, not whether or not the.
Okay, we've already voted on the amendment. We're back to the original resolution as amended.
Oh, I'm sorry, lost track in the fog. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Yes.
I think Attorney Hugh Gwynn brought up in the Public Protection and Judiciary that those who operate these machines just need to make sure that victims are not being scammed. So whatever protections that the operators of the machine can put in place, obviously they can't control scammers getting in touch with victims, but whatever controls the operators can put in place, which is why I brought this page up of the bill. There has to be this big sign on it that fraud alert. If someone you don't know is asking you to send virtual currency, do not proceed. That's one of the things that the operators can do, is put big signs notifying people that if you don't know the person, just beware. And I think that's part of this bill, is just then informing potential victims of this could be a scam, possibly.
I think Hugh Gwynn's point was it requires the companies only allow somebody to do $1,000 per day. It requires the companies to have warnings for fraud, but there's no enforcement mechanism or penalty provision if the companies just disregarded it. So, if they just ignore those requirements, what's the recourse for enforcement?
So this is my last comment on this. A lot of people use cryptocurrency or virtual currency or whatever you want to call it to be unchained from the regular monetary system. And by using bills like this to regulate that, we're stepping into an area that is almost tough. Like, I'm not saying we're not passing this bill, clearly. We're pushing to support this bill, but I can't, in good faith, support these two versions, because cryptocurrency is not there to be regulated. It's there to help people break free of whatever it is they want to break free from in this system. I don't do it. I don't understand it totally, but I know that that's what it's there for. So my last comment is I'm not going to support it even with the teeth. I think there could be better versions of the bill, and so I won't support this resolution.
Other comments? Supervisor Shirley?
I would agree with virtually everything that Supervisor Burning said. The current bill that was attached here from the Assembly has got a lot of issues with it. It doesn't clearly define what a kiosk is, not real well. It doesn't really define how these, if they're looking at kiosks individually, then that's one thing. And I may be more apt to vote for something that we're talking about kiosks and not going towards supporting this specific bill, because I think this bill has a lot of issues with it, and I would not support it if we're saying that we are going, if the resolution, the way it's stated, is that we are going to support this Assembly bill, then I would not support it. If we're looking at virtual kiosks in a general sense, if we want to do something amended to that, I'd be for that, but not for this specific bill.
Supervisor Carlson.
Thank you. What gave me pause during the Public Protection Committee meeting was, and I looked it up since then, there was a major IG investigation, or AG investigation in Iowa, and over 90% of all transactions through kiosks were scam related. Less than 10% were people just buying their Bitcoin for themselves. So that really gives me pause that I think we should pass something like this and to try to limit that. I don't think they're put there legitimately or a legitimate purpose.
And I'll just remind everyone, out of the respect for the committee structure that we have in place, that the public protection, I'm assuming, has fully vetted these bills and did vote in favor 5-0 to support these bills as amended. So just keep that in mind. Other comments, questions? We're ready to vote on the resolution supporting the Assembly Bill 384 and Senate Bill 386 relating to the regulation of virtual currency kiosks as amended. And that resolution passes 14-2. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to number 3 on our agenda, business items, resolution establishing compensation for elected officials for the years 2027 through 2030. Do we have a motion? Supervisor Burning?
I'll make a motion to approve compensation for elected officials for the year 2027 to 2030.
And do we have a second? Supervisor Lind, thank you. Oh, we're going to have a little explanation here. Looks like Leaf, maybe you're up.
So I do apologize, I am pinch hitting today. This is not really my wheelhouse, but Audrey did kind of prepare me for this, so I'll kind of read the background here. So I want to start by acknowledging that the recommended adjustment for the sheriff and clerk of court is larger than what we typically bring forward, and that's a fair observation. Our normal compensation philosophy, one this board has supported over time, is to use market data from similarly situated counties, evaluate internal equity based on scope, responsibility, supervision, and qualifications, And generally, we place these positions in the mid to upper portion of the market, roughly the 50th to 75th percentile. Last year, when wages were set for Register of Deeds, Treasurer, and County Clerk, the board ultimately approved a placement at higher or closer to the top of the market, while that decision moved these roles outside of our usual strategy. It did establish the current compensation relationship among those elected officials. Now, as we bring forward wages for the remaining elected positions, we are faced with a practical equity issue. If we applied our standard approach to only the sheriff and clerk of courts, we would create a meaningful disparity among the elected officials with comparable statutory responsibility, public accountability, and organizational impact. The recommendation before you is intended to align those positions with the current structure that exists today, not a change in our philosophy going forward. More importantly, the proposed wages are still supported by market data. They are simply positioned higher in the market than where these roles were previously placed. Looking ahead, our intent is to return all elected positions to a more consistent, sustainable approach over time by moderating future increases and aligning with the county's broader compensation strategy. But in the near term, this adjustment is necessary to maintain internal equity, stability, fairness among elected officials. In short, this recommendation is about alignment, not escalation, and about ensuring the county applies compensation decisions consistently based on where we are at today.
That's pretty good.
Audrey's thorough, I can tell you that much.
Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Supervisor Burning.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap up what he said very nicely for everyone. Basically, we made a change 2 years ago to the other elected officials that have the 4-year terms. We made a big jump, and we're gonna do it proportionately if we pass this as is for the next round of elected officials that we're gonna catch up and make it proportionate to what we did before.
Comments, questions? Supervisor Hanson.
What percentage is this, and then is it consistent with what regular, and I mean non-elected county employees are going to see over the same period of time?
Yeah, the percentages are 18%, 3, 3, and 3. It is not reflective of what we do with other employees.
Please compare and contrast what other regular employees are going to get.
Yeah, the other employees received a 3% COLA and a step increase for 2026, which would be high compared to what we normally do, which would place them anywhere from 4 to 5.5% in total compensation increase.
Is it time for a market study? McGrath was a long time ago.
We do a market study about every 3 to 4 years. We just did one 2 years ago, I think it was. We make adjustments to the grid. We would never have enough money to give every employee an 18% increase. So it doesn't do any good to have a market study tell me to do that, because I can't afford to do that.
Thank you, you've brought me to my point. How is this going to affect morale of our mainline employees to give elected officials an 18% raise?
That's county board policy.
To my colleagues, perhaps we should give this a second thought.
Questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we're ready to vote on the resolution to approve the resolution. There it is, establishing compensation for elected officials for the years 2027 through 2030. And that resolution passes, or the motion passes 14-2. Thank you. We're going to move on to number 4, resolution opposing the rezoning request pending before the Village of North Hudson by Railroad Properties of Hudson, LLC, for the parcel listed. This came from Community Development. Would someone like to make a motion, please? Supervisor Rice?
Yes, I'd like to move that we pass a resolution opposing the rezoning request pending before the Village of North Hudson by Railroad Properties of Hudson LLC for parcel number 161-1070-20-003.
And a second, Supervisor Van Summeren. Who would like to explain this resolution? Supervisor Counter.
All right. This resolution has come a long ways over the time, a lot of discussion. And there's been a lot of concerns on the property. We have seen what's happened with the city hasn't really given any response, and a part of their reason for no response is they didn't see the need because my understanding is they didn't see the need because there wasn't water and sewer access near it, and didn't see the relevancy at the time. One of the concerns that's been brought up during some of the different meetings that we've had where this has been discussed is dealing with also the potential for that area for future catastrophic events with storms and things that can come through and give potential for flooding in Lake Malibu and having resistance to the dam. The dam is still fairly in good shape. It's inspected. We have to recall that the county has 50% liability for that dam. So maintaining the accesses and the things to keep up with it is real important. That area where this is partially, if you look at the diagrams that are there, this is also an earthen dam that's also in place there. So that whole piece of property is basically part of that structure for the prevention of for the flooding and breaking out of the dam. So the other issue is that a lot of that property that's in there has currently it's used most definitely as park space for the Hudson residents and North Hudson residents. It's not posted that way. There isn't improvements or anything else, but a lot of people do their fishing and stuff along the shorelines. I think for us, though, the important thing to look at is access if we have to do eventual work on that dam, how we're going to do it and how much additional cost it would be to that the county would have to undertake to be able to move in the equipment and do the things necessary and work around a development that would be right up to its doorstep. So therefore, that's, I guess, where we're going with this. There's nobody on our committee that is against development by any means. But in this particular case, there's just concerns. So we want to bring, that's the reason behind this resolution.
Supervisor Leaf.
I had a question, and maybe you can answer that, Jason. Regard to the conservancy status, and Mr. Linson was here earlier and said that there was an error. So I guess I'd like to know, as long as I've been involved with North Hudson stuff, that property was always zoned conservancy. So can you tell me what has transpired and why that has maybe changed?
Yeah.
Or not changed?
Thank you, Supervisor Leaf. So this property doesn't fall directly underneath the county zoning authority or their plans. And so with regard to the conservancy, and that Gina Alberti, the village clerk, went back throughout history and at some point in the early 70s, and that the property was future planned for conservancy growth. However, at that time, and that the railroad was still operational on that parcel. And so there was no public hearing notices at that time, but in the early 70s, that's when a lot of towns, municipalities were adopting general zoning. And so they were adopting a whole ordinance, adopting a whole plan. So maybe that could be how it got zone conservancy at that time. But I believe that the village is taking the approach and that they believe that that was an error and that it is actually industrial because it was still operating as a train track at that time. The 2006 comprehensive plan for the village actually left out the parcel here and it was just a white blank. So there wasn't any future land use guidance for that area. And since then, we have, as our department, assisted the Village of North Hudson in a 2025 comprehensive plan amendment. It's about a 1.5-year process. It's something that we do to other municipalities within the county as well. And so that is now guided for vacant, conservancy, residential, and commercial. And so all three land use categories are in the new plan, and that was suggested to the village from their council.
Supervisor Shirley.
I just wanted to talk on this issue that I will no longer be supporting this resolution. As we talked about in committee ad nauseum for years, as much as people may want, the committee has agreed, this committee and the prior committee has agreed for years that the county will not run a park in this area. So the idea of having it conservancy, if the village wants to make a park there, great. The county's probably not gonna do it. So that was one issue I want to talk about. The second would be access. So access was something that I brought up in the committee meeting a lot. Now we're asking the Village of North Hudson to not approve a rezoning. That's more of a development question, not a rezoning question. So they can rezone this, but we have to have, as neighboring property, in order for them to get to their property, they have to go through our property that we own 100% on. So we're gonna have to do some give and take if this goes through in the village and gets rezoned in the actual development stage on how it's going to be done to grant us access and easement. So to tell the Village of North Hudson no because we want access, we're kind of getting the cart before the horse. That's a development issue, not a rezoning issue. It's an odd piece of property. It surrounds all of these parcels that, the county owns the one at 100%. The city of Hudson, village, and the county own multiple properties around it that we have together jointly. And it's very strange that now a private person owns a bridge across a navigable waterway that feeds water into a national riverway is odd. But all in all, I can't support us telling the Village of North Hudson what to do with this property to rezone it when I believe that we're gonna have access to the dam. We just have to do it through the development process later. This is just the rezoning. If this project even happens in the first place, I'm not sure that this project, even if rezoned, is ever gonna happen.
Supervisor Hanson.
Supervisor Shirley, that's a very good summary. And we shared time on that committee for a number of years. This property do we know if that's ever flooded? Is that floodplain?
It is floodplain. I don't know if it's actually topped that whole part, but it is definitely mapped floodplain.
All right. So there's DNR concern. Will the Wild Rivers Act, does that have to go through United States Congress to make an exception to build in there?
No,
It doesn't,
not that I believe, no, so.
because that whole shorefront is there's a overlay, you know, there's zoning overlay that's completely governed by the Wild Rivers Act. We don't have authority over that.
Correct. Any development would have to comply with NR 118, which is the Lower St. Croix Riverway provisions, and it would also have to comply with NR 116, which is the floodplain regulations for that area. So just the rezoning alone doesn't mean that the proposal for the developments for multifamily homes can go through. They would still have to meet those steps.
So, I don't want to just comply with that letter of the law here. I want to comply with the spirit of the law. The Wild Rivers Act is meant to keep that river beautiful and clean, and this piece of land is a barrier. It's a buffer. It's meant to keep it, the nature, not just nature, heck, that dam made this thing. Take that dam out, all of that's going to wash back into the river. And any house that's on it is vulnerable to the hydraulic forces that dam is just holding back. I wouldn't want to live there, I'll tell you that. So just knowing that that's in floodplain and that it's governed by the Wild Rivers Act makes it a very, very poor choice to build housing. So that's my 2 cents, but I don't think we should rezone this thing.
Supervisor Carlson?
Like you said, it's not a matter of rezoning, it's already zoned where they could do it. It doesn't fall under our zoning, it's up to North Hudson. Also, Mr. Learson owns this land, and I believe people, on principle, should be able to do what they want with their land as long as they don't affect the rights of others. And I don't see how this affects the right of others. They say maybe it'll cut off access to the dam or not. Have we had somebody that's expert in that to speak to us about it, or is it, where is that coming from? That is a worry. I feel like I don't have enough information overall, so I'm inclined to vote against this resolution. I would kind of like to wait until I hear what North Hudson says, but then if whatever they say, so you see the point, cart before the horse.
Supervisor Van Summeren.
I understand where everybody's coming from, but there's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, as someone mentioned earlier, you know, this is kind of a park. It's not a park that's officially a park. It's a park where 12-year-old kids, 12-year-old boys and girls go down with a fishing pole and fish. It's a place they can do that. Now, when they build houses there, it's a place they will not be able to do that. So it's taking away some of the joy of their summertime. It is, as Jason said, it's vulnerable to floods. If you've ever been along that river in the spring, along the river any place, and there are some very nice houses down there that are sandbagged about 4 feet high because the water is about 4 feet high. So it is really a ridiculous place to build a house. However, there are people who will buy a house in a ridiculously built place. They'll pay high insurance until the flood takes the house away, and then they expect FEMA to rebuild it for them. And when I look at all of those things, I think now is the time to say no, because later, after this happens, is not the time to say no. That's why I think this is the time we keep this as a place, an open place, a green place. Yes, it doesn't all belong to us, but at least we can do our part in keeping it fresh for children like that. Thank you.
Supervisor Burning.
Thank you. So I just have two things. One, why not just have a resolution asking for access? That's not rhetorical.
Yep, so the dam deeds in that go back to like 1964. There was also an agreement on that was a following document that said that the city of Hudson would be responsible for doing the actual maintenance on the dam, and St. Croix County is just a financial contributor. And so our liability is 50% of the dam, and then all the properties around there, we're also 50% owner of. The city of Hudson is 20%, the village of North Hudson is 20%, and the town of Hudson is 10%. And so to my knowledge, and in some side conversations with Mr. Lenzen, we haven't had any access issues to the dam, but it's been relatively routine maintenance in the last few years, so.
Okay.
I believe he's owned it for 3 years, so it's just been normal maintenance to get to the site.
Okay, so now my next question is, and I think we should offer an amendment of some sort on line 1. Is it Bruce Lenzen that made the application, or is it his company, Railroad Properties of Hudson LLC? And I just look at that because why is he named as a natural person on there, on this resolution, instead of Hudson, Railroad Properties of Hudson? At that very first line, line 1 of the resolution, whereas Bruce Lenzen has filed an application. It's a little bit pointy at an individual, instead of, you can point at a company and it's a little less aggressive. If somebody has an answer as to why we did that, I won't make an amendment, but I think we should replace that with Railroad Properties of Hudson LLC filed an application.
It was not.
I know it says it on 11.
Yep.
But it should say it in 1 instead of pointing at an individual.
So the tax rule says Railroad Properties of Hudson LLC, and so that's probably who it tied back to. So yeah, I think it would be appropriate to amend line 1 then.
Do you need a formal amendment on that? So I make a motion to amend resolution number 4, 2026, regarding line 1. After whereas, we should strike Bruce Lenzen and replace it with Railroad Properties of Hudson LLC.
And second, Supervisor Rice. Any comments to that amendment? Seems pretty logical. Let's vote on that amendment to the resolution. All right, that amendment motion passes 16, or unanimously. Supervisor Rice, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, it has been, this topic has been discussed quite a bit at the community development meeting. All of us, in the spirit of, hopefully I'll capture our conversation, we're all reluctant to tell any entity how they should zone their properties. The way that this came about was because, and Jason, we may need to have you pull up the actual digital map of the parcels. We're neighbors to this. The St. Croix County owns adjoining properties around this. So it comes up as a question of, if this property is developed, and we do have a sketch of the concept. Yeah, this may not be it, but you could maybe use your arrows just to show. On either side, this is the proposed area. Here it is. On either side, those on the lower part, that is the artist sketch of the homes that are looking to be developed. We own, the St. Croix County residents own property surrounding on either side of this. So it raises the question of what value, what happens to property that all of the citizens of the county have when and if these homes are built. And I would suggest it poses a lot of conflict. The way that this, we danced around the word park, this is almost more like a nature preserve area. And when you stand on Highway 35 and look out towards the St. Croix River, the lower part is quite a bit lower than the northern parcel that's in the village of North Hudson. So it does just feel like a place where you'd go and drop a fishing line, which is how people use it today and have used it for a long time. I guess the The other topic that keeps coming up is this has been discussed in the village quite a bit, but we're the neighbors, and they haven't engaged us. There has not been, Jason explained to us, you know, how sometimes phone calls and emails aren't returned. I don't know if, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but perhaps you can talk a little bit about our lack of knowledge of what the plan is relative to where the village is at today.
Okay, so I have had communications with Gina Alberti. Their plan commission had considered this and actually recommended approval of the zoning change of both parcels back in December. And then at the January village board meeting, they approved the rezoning of that north parcel and that to what they call RM1, which is low-density multifamily housing, which also matches the surrounding zoning on that north chunk because there's the East Bay condos there. But on the south side, they tabled it because I believe a couple council members were looking for more information. And so even Gina didn't know and that if they had received all that information. It is on their agenda tonight. So I don't know if they were gonna follow up and take action on it or what the outcome of that meeting will be. But that is what we know.
I'd like to follow up with one last point. I did visit with the mayor of Hudson, Rich O'Connor. And if you, this is muddies the waters, literally. The dam that you're seeing right now, if we did a larger view, what it does is it creates a lake, Lake Malibu, where there's some very beautiful homes around it. Lake Malibu is, and the river, the Willow River that flows into it, are problematic, and they have a lot of toxic problems with it. But what I'd also draw your attention to is if you look a little lower, there's a lot of conversation about the dam that we're pointing to. There's a lower dam. So there's actually two dams that make this lake. And the natural question is, well, why? Why does this, at one time this was a hydroelectric dam, the big one. And the net result of what we have today with this lake, Malibu, that the Lake Association is struggling to try to figure out how they can clean up, is that little dam is blocking flowage down to the St. Croix, and that little blue spot is a soup of blue-green algae and E. coli that flows directly into the St. Croix River waterfront that runs in front of the City of Hudson Lakefront Park and the beach. They've had to repeatedly close the beach due to E. coli contamination over the last couple of years. And what they're pointing to is that little dot of blue. That's what the city employees are telling us. So what this really needs is all of the parties to be at the table and have a fulsome conversation of how everyone is involved. And I would even question, why are we paying for a dam? I think that should be on the table because it is not a hydroelectric dam, and you have to ask the question of what purpose does it serve? So once these buildings get built, it muddies the waters, literally, and the choices before us and everyone else are limited. So I don't want to walk away as though we're pointing a finger at the village saying you need to do this or do that. Opposing rezoning is a starting place, not an ending place.
Shirley.
One important point, I think, since our community development meeting, I believe, was that change that Village of North Hudson had where they rectified that conservancy. So if you look at, back to our resolution actually says that we're against rezoning from conservancy to low-density multifamily. Well, currently, now, according to the village, it's commercial industrial, not conservancy. So I guess that would be my first amendment, that we need to change that because that's not correct on the on this resolution. But more importantly, now that it's not conservancy and now it's commercial industrial, moving to low-density housing, I don't know how he would do it, but potentially if this is not rezoned, he could do something commercial industrial in there. I'm not sure how he would do it. I'm not sure how he would technically do low-density housing. I don't see it happening either way, whether it's commercial, residential, either way. I don't see anything happening on that property. But right now, it's zoned commercial industrial. And I think that that is a very important point that has changed since our committee meeting.
Supervisor Hanson?
Way back when, I was the chair at Community Development, and I only mention that because it gave me the chance to go to training put on by Wisconsin Land and Water. And I learned about a legal and economic doctrine called the doctrine of the greater good, the public trust doctrine, which states that the government is a trustee of public resources when it comes to natural resources that the public uses, particularly navigable waters and land beneath them, wildlife areas, and areas that the public uses but doesn't use up. That the government is charged with taking care of these areas and protecting them so that people can enjoy them. The Community Development Committee has always considered this over the 12 years that I was on that, the 10 years that I was on that committee and the 7 years that I chaired it. That was a primary first step in considering most things that came up concerning the land use, water use, recreation, parks. Public trust doctrine was very, very important. And so when you think about private rights do not and should not trump the public trust doctrine. Public trust doctrine goes all the way back to its origin during Roman law in Europe. It came up back before the Common Era. So it's not a new thing that was cooked up just to annoy people. So I just would like you to know that, and it's served us very well, and it should serve us again now. So thank you.
Okay, I think we've kind of beat this one to death. Does anyone have any final comments or questions that they'd like to bring up? Because the motion on the floor is to approve the resolution as amended.
Did Supervisor Shirley offer an amendment?
He did not.
He did not.
Well, then you better try it again.
Well,
I mean, I heard the word amendment.
I heard it too, but I didn't hear a formal amendment.
yes, so I did want an amendment on the official vote here that conservancy needs to be changed to commercial industrial.
And is that correct? Has that change been made, Jason?
And that, so it's tricky because, again, the village had to do their own background work on trying to figure out what it is owned. I'm not sure exactly what they've got it for on their zoning map today because of all of this going on in the last couple months. So it's not something that we have a copy of because we don't have any jurisdiction on it.
Could we just eliminate from conservancy? Would that work?
Yeah. Yep.
How about that? Would you like to offer that amendment?
That would be fine with me as long as the conservancy's out of there. I don't know, I mean, we have so many different versions of what's going on that I agree. If we take that out of there, then at least we're covered.
I'll second that one.
Okay.
You have a point of order?
Can I make a comment?
Well, I have a point of order. So the original motion was not withdrawn.
Correct.
Well, there's no second. Okay, so it died with no second? Is that what's being called?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
Okay, so the The motion on the floor is to amend the resolution to eliminate on line number 2 from conservancy. And there was a second by Supervisor Leaf. So that's the motion on the floor. That's what we need to vote on right now. Yes, you may.
Okay. Do we think it's important to know what it's being rezoned from and to? Does it make a difference if it's from conservancy to low density versus from, can't remember what the other one was, to low density? I heard several arguments, and the arguments would have been for or against one versus the other. How can we vote on something that we don't know what it is going from and to? I'm a little concerned about that.
Could we get any guidance from Corporation Counsel?
I believe when I originally drafted this resolution, my understanding was Mr. Lenson's application indicated that the parcel was conservancy and he was asking for a rezone to low-density multiple family residence. I don't have a copy of that application. I was trying to look through my documents, but I believe that was why Bruce Lenson, on behalf of Railroad Properties of Hudson LLC, filed an application from conservancy, because that's what he thought it was at the time. I don't know what it is now, to low-density multiple family residence. And is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Supervisor Rowan.
Can we answer the question in reverse? Is there some definition currently where it is viewed as low-density, multiple family housing? I haven't heard that.
Sorry,
Somebody mentioned earlier that that if it's not currently conservancy, that it may have a couple of designations in the current zoning. Is that true or not?
I believe that the village in that would call it industrial. I believe that's what they're determining that it was. I don't know the exact name of their zoning district or how they're classifying it, so I'm not going to be saying that Supervisor Shirley is wrong. But I believe that's the determination that they have made. Low-density multifamily is that, and that they also have a high-density multifamily, which is more of your, apartment complex with multiple stories and that. This would be lower buildings, less density.
Yeah, I guess my point is, if it's not currently in some way thought of being designated low-density multiple family housing, I don't know the question matters. We know what the proposal is. It would require low-density multiple family housing. I think the amendment, as it's stated, would cover.
And Summerin.
I don't think what we call it makes a difference. We have the parcel number, and that's what counts. That's what everybody's going to go on. You could leave it blank behind that, and we would still know which piece of property it is, whatever it's called this week. Thank you.
Okay, the amendment on the floor is to eliminate from conservancy on line number 2. Let's go ahead and vote on that. Okay, that motion passes 14-1 with 1 abstention. Okay, now we're back to the original resolution. The motion on the floor was to approve this resolution as amended. We've eliminated Bruce Lenson and replaced that with Railroad Properties of Hudson and eliminated from conservancy on line number 2. So that's where the amended resolution stands at this point. Do we have any other further questions or comments? Supervisor Shirley.
One final comment that I have is that the Village of North Hudson is not under county zoning. So we as a county, typically community development deals with people that are entities that are in county zoning. Now we're dealing with a property that is not in county zoning, and we're telling the Village of North Hudson to rezone it how we want to. isn't necessarily a good precedent that we're telling a municipality that's not under county zoning what to do with it. So I will not support this.
Supervisor Rambert.
But I believe we're acting as a landowner, not as a county in this case, in my thoughts.
All right, any other final comments? Supervisor Leaf?
I just had one that I agree, we are acting as landowners and we are neighbors. And I think the issues between the access to the dam and also the fact that this is an environmental and I think should be protected space, we need to let the village know how we feel about it as neighbors.
Final comments? Okay, we're ready to vote on the resolution number 4 as amended. You're not going to make me repeat the amendments, are you? And that motion passes 11-5. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 5, resolution amending personnel policies, benefits. Hopefully this will be a little quicker. Do we have a motion? Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the change to 2026, the personnel policy under benefits.
And second, Supervisor Counter. Looks like you're up again, Leaf.
I feel for you. She never misses a meeting, and then it's this one.
Yeah, you know, of course she picked this one. Thankfully, this one's a little more in my wheelhouse as the benefits analyst. So we updated our benefits policy to kind of align with current benefits administration, current the way we deliver benefits, as well as to apply towards state and federal law. Most of the changes that we made in the policy were mostly to improve clarity. I'll highlight just a couple of the key points here. At the top of the policy, we added a formal disclaimer to clearly state that the policy is informational and that benefit eligibility and administration are actually governed by our plan documents, SPDs, et cetera, collective bargaining agreements, as well as state law, state and federal law. Definitions and eligibility language were refined to ensure that employee classifications and benefit eligibility are applied consistently. References to PTO and holidays were removed since those benefits are actually governed in separate policies. And the most significant change was replacing the prior long-term disability language with the new income continuation benefit that we started for January 1st, which is administered through WRS and provides a significantly richer benefit while resulting in substantial cost savings to the county.
Questions, comments? Let's vote. I'm sorry. The motion on the floor is to approve the resolution amending personnel policies regarding benefits. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we've had a request to take a very brief 5-minute recess. Get up, stretch your legs. We're going to start right at 7 o'clock.
and
Questions, comments? You're going to make this easy on me, aren't you? Okay, let's vote. The motion on the floor is to approve the resolution supporting 2026 Wisconsin DNR Recreational Trails Program grant application. And that motion passes 15-1. Next up is a resolution amending the rules of the Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Burning?
Say this right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution amending the rules of the Board of Supervisors.
And second, Supervisor Counter. Would you like to explain? Or
This Corporation Council, yeah.
I can do so. So there are three main changes that are being recommended tonight. One is to add the words "and the municipal clerk" for who should receive notices if there's a vacancy on the county board. And then also the language in 3B, which now would state, upon close of the application process, the county clerk shall notify the county board that application materials of the candidates may be viewed in the county clerk's office and notify the county board with any other information regarding the timeline for filling the vacancy. And finally, there would be a change to Article 2, Section A, and this would be at the organizational meeting, electing the chair and vice chair. We changed the language to be more consistent with what is recommended by the Wisconsin Counties Association. To just have a majority of votes of the supervisors present shall be necessary to elect the board chair and vice chair. What we had before is that we would drop the person with the lowest votes and then keep continuing, but that could create some issues, and so this is the recommendation of the Wisconsin Counties Association on how to elect chairs and vice chairs.
Questions, comments? Yes, Supervisor Verding.
So with that, the last change, what it does is it doesn't take away the vote of somebody who wants to vote for someone else to be the chair. So then that way you're not losing someone that maybe somebody wants to. This isn't a caucus here. You were voting for the chair. So that's part of the other logic that we discussed at admin.
Supervisor Leaf?
I had a question about the vacancy and the materials and such. How do other counties deal with this? Is it all over the board?
It's all over the board. Some counties don't address it at all. That's the most common, I think we've recognized through board rules, is some don't even, they just refer to the state statute and then just leave it silent otherwise.
Other comments, questions? Supervisor Rice?
So I watched the administrative committee meeting where this was discussed. I believe that the approach that we used in the past and your leadership on this, Chair Long, has been very good. I don't know that any of us would say there is such a thing as a perfect process that we would all agree to. But the notion, I'm very nervous about the idea that upon the close of the application process, that any one of us would go in and view materials. I understand there would be certain private things redacted. You know, it seems to me that it undermines the authority and the process of the leader of this group. And I will just say, while we have a vacancy over here, I did not appreciate the cut and paste emails that we received urging us to vote for or against a certain nominee. I don't feel that that was appropriate for us in this position, and it undermined Chair Long's role. I get nervous about the idea that someone's going to come in and maybe use their phone or something and take pictures of material and have that be gone out. I think we should keep it confidential and private, and just have the name before us with the application once selected, as is the current practice. So I guess I'm moving to strike the language underneath B under vacancies.
So there's a motion to eliminate B of the board rules under 3. Is that correct?
I second that.
And second by Supervisor Hanson. Could Supervisor, our Corporation Counsel, could you address possibly the confidentiality issue regarding information?
Yes, so as everyone knows, as a government entity, we are subject to Chapter 19, which is the Public Records and Open Meetings Law. Technically, application process or application materials would be a public record that anybody could request. There might be balancing test arguments to not release it for a certain reason. We likely would redact personally identifiable information such as email addresses, phone numbers. But there could be the potential for county board supervisors to obtain this information anyway through an open records request to the county clerk. And again, each public records request has to be addressed on its own merits and whether or not there is a balancing test that would apply. There is a statute, and of course I don't have it up right now, that indicates if there's 5 or more individuals that are finalists for a position, there might be some limitations on what can be released. And again, I can look that up if there's further discussion. So this allows for a procedure for the county clerk to allow the county board supervisors to come and look at the material, but she's not distributing copies of it, to alleviate maybe some of the concerns about distributing it to other people. That was the discussion at the administration committee meeting, is to allow supervisors to view it so they know who the people are and you know who they might be voting for or against, but not letting them take the materials with them and distribute it to other people.
Supervisor Shirley.
To give everybody else a little background that wasn't at the administration committee, the reason that this was brought up is that when we have a vacancy, the chair provides a recommendation to the rest of the board, but as the rest of the board that aren't the chair, how are we supposed to know what we're voting on if we don't know who the other applicants are? So we're voting on a recommendation, which is chair privilege, that's fine, but for those of us that want to know, for any supervisor that would like to know more than just whatever is provided to them, we should be able to have that access.
A question for the committee. Did you consider anything other than just reviewing applications? And I'll give some background on that. So I was appointed to the board through a process, and there was an interview process that I sat down with Bob, we talked, and from what he said, it sounds like he did that with a few other people, and then he made a recommendation to the board. Did you consider perhaps having several board members sit in on an interview process or doing anything other than just reviewing the because I just think as a hiring manager in jobs I've had in the past, just seeing a resume on a piece of paper doesn't really help me know if that's the right person. Like, at what point do you have enough information to make that decision? And would you trust a smaller group of your peers to
I can address that.
So
Yeah, so when we considered this, there was a lot of different options that were put out on the table. This was kind of a middle ground of what everybody, like what certain parties wanted. And all this really is saying, hey, county clerk, just notify everyone that the applications are closed. Then the responsibility falls on us as supervisors if we so choose. Because it's really difficult, I think, for a lot of us to just sit there and stare at portals and, things that where this is all happening or possibly happening. And so all this is instructing the county clerk to notify the supervisors that the applications are closed. If you so choose to want to come in and look at them, give me a holler. But otherwise, that's all this is. This isn't like providing paperwork via email or putting it out there in the newspaper or anything of that nature. This is just simply a notification. That's all this is saying.
Any other comments or questions on the proposed amendment to eliminate 3B from the board rules? Supervisor?
I'll be voting no on the proposed amendment only because this is not anything other than the clerk notifying us that that the application process is closed.
Okay, we're ready to vote on the amendment to eliminate 3B. And that motion fails 5-11. We're back to the original motion regarding the change in the board rules. Any other comments or questions? Supervisor Rice.
I wanted to offer a friendly amendment, and that we ask any supervisors viewing materials to not bring along their phones to take pictures of what they see.
You can put that into the rules. You're a self-organized county, which means you can create any rule that you want to as long as it's not in conflict with Wisconsin statutes. So you can create that rule. If a newspaper reporter came in, though, and says, I would like a copy of all the applications, we would give them to them.
Absolutely.
So, and then they can run a story in the newspaper saying these 5 people applied for the vacant board position. So it's not that the information's confidential. It isn't confidential. It is a public record, as Corporation Counsel has said before. So you can put it in the rules. I'm just saying nobody really probably has to follow it.
And the statute I was referring to before is Wisconsin Statute 19.36 which is the identities of applicants for public positions. So if there's 5 or fewer applicants, their identities are public record. So there's already a statute that indicates their identities are public record. Again, we would redact emails, telephone numbers, any personally identifiable information, so to prevent potential fraud. But as Administrator Witt indicated, the papers could request it. Any other citizen could request it. So there already is a statute on point indicating that information is public, as government is supposed to be.
So would you like to continue on your amendment?
I'll withdraw.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor?
Yeah, as probably the most recent appointee who went through this rather strange process that we have. I think about what information I might have had in my application that I would not want to be public. And if anything that the applicant turns in by definition becomes public record, that becomes problematic. It seems to me that maybe the only way to approach it is to advise candidates before they submit applications that this is going to become public record. Don't put anything in your application that you don't want to become public record. I can't see another solution.
Supervisor Hanson.
I would suggest a whole entirely different approach. I think we're going down the wrong avenue here. When you run for election, you don't fill out a resume. I think that the county board chair has a responsibility to do this on their own for a reason. And it is because it's their responsibility to interview. And piggybacking on Supervisor McCarthy, right? Thank you. I can't quite read that. I didn't know if it was a T at the end or a T. Thank you. You should stick around. I learned that. The idea that you had to have a committee, if the county board chair wanted to get a little bit more information, that would be useful. But the idea of asking, and I've always thought this, a person to submit a resume and a history is invasive. I've had many people, when I'm going around the neighborhoods, ask me personal information. I'm happy to share, but I've never given anybody a resume. It seems invasive and unreasonable to ask somebody who's applying for the position to do so, to become a matter of public record. I think we should change the way we do things to be a little bit more consistent with what we do ourselves when we run for public office. And I would send this back to the committee with that comment. And I would ask you to consider taking the whole thing, put it back to the committee, rework it.
Supervisor Carlson?
I kind of see it a different way. When you run for public office, you get interviewed many times, and it's very public. But everybody has a chance to vet you. If we don't know anything and all we have is a name from the chairman, and all we have is a name, why do we even vote? Jonathan Tubwiddle, yes or no? I know nothing about him, so why even have a vote then? Just have the chairman do it. So, which I don't think any of us want. So you need something in the middle. And this seems pretty decently to be in the middle. It gives us a chance to vet, at least know a little bit before the vote.
Considering that I've gone through this process 3 times in the last 6 months or so, would it be permissible for me to at least make a comment and not enter into the discussion?
As long as there is no objection by the county board supervisors, then.
Well, first of all, I'll say that I think that the process that we have is sound. I think it works. And all we're really trying to do here by modifying the rules is be a little more transparent with the county board supervisors so that you're aware of the process. You're aware that there are applicants. You're aware that you have access to the information should you choose to review it. You're aware of the process and where we're at in the process, and you always have the opportunity to sit down with the county board chair and talk to them one-on-one about any candidates that you may be familiar with, that you're not familiar with. So there's always the opportunity for feedback, and there always has been, but I'm not sure that we really emphasize that. So all we're really doing here is saying, we're going to let you know when the information's available, and whatever you want to do with it is fine, and you always have the opportunity to talk to the chair, either before or after the interview process. I think it's a good process. I've done it 3 times. It's not perfect, but it works. And the other thing is you have to have some level of trust in whoever it is that you elect as chair. And I'll leave it at that. I didn't mean to silence you. Any comments or suggestions? Supervisor Lind.
The key word is transparency, and I like that. If this becomes the book that supervisors use, I know that for me as a supervisor, I've gone back to the book to see what it is that I can expect. So for me, as a supervisor, if coming into this board, you would have this written to be able to say, okay, this is what I can expect, check. And it takes it away from having to call and ask questions and raise a ruckus. So I think that this wording belongs in here for transparency. It is a good idea, and I say yes.
Okay, we are back to the, if I remember correctly, we're back to the original motion to approve the resolution as written and not amended in your board packet. Does anyone have any other comments? Okay, let's vote to the motion to approve the resolution amending the rules of the board supervisors. And that motion passes 15 to 0 with one abstention. All right, we're moving on. Number 8, resolution directing Corporation Council to update and revise Chapter 90 of the St. Croix County Code of Ordinances. Supervisor Burning?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution directing Corporation Council to update and revise Chapter 90 of the St. Croix County Code of Ordinances.
And is there a second? Supervisor Counter. Who would like to take this one?
So I have been reviewing Chapter 90, and there are a lot of aspects of the chapter that are missing very important aspects that, as Corporation Council, I believe are necessary in Chapter 90. As you can see in lines 11 and 12, the Chapter 90 governs the ethical standards, complaint procedures, investigations, and enforcement mechanisms applicable to both county officers and employees. Just to give you an example of what county or Chapter 90 is missing, there's no appeal process. So if there's a fact-finding hearing, it doesn't say what is to happen after that. Typically, there would be an appeal procedure that the individual could appeal to the county board or some other body. And so they're just very basic items throughout Chapter 90 that are very vague and cause issues when you're trying to apply it to a situation. And so the administration committee did address this resolution, and to direct me to rewrite Chapter 90 in its entirety, I have found 3 other counties' ethics codes that are very well written, that I like different portions of each one. And so the plan would be, if this resolution is adopted by the county board, that I would bring that rewritten Chapter 90 back to the administration committee first when it's rewritten.
Comments, questions? Supervisor Counter.
I'll just say I'm on the admin committee and had an opportunity to read this very thoroughly and found exactly what Corp Counsel was talking about. There was a lot of things that were conflicting. Even an example was Corp Counsel was, if you had an ethics complaint, the person that the complaint on has the opportunity to discuss it with the Corp Counsel, but then right on the other side, it's saying the Corp Counsel puts together the case against the person. So that doesn't work well. But it's just things like this that were in it that just, it needed some definite major revisions, so.
Any other comments or questions? All right, the motion on the floor is to approve the resolution directing Corporation Council to update and revise Chapter 90, the Code of Ethics, the St. Croix County Code of Ordinances. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Round number 9, resolution authorizing extension of fairgrounds lease with St. Croix County Fair, Inc. Supervisor Burning.
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve resolution authorizing extension of fairgrounds lease with St. Croix County Fair, Inc.
And a second, Supervisor Telejohn. Who would like to?
Yeah, I can take it. I mean, pretty standard operating procedure when it comes to the county fair, using county property. They get to lease it. There's not a lot of change to it. I think maybe a nominal dollar amount, or did we leave it the same? We left it the same. Yeah, don't get them after me. All right. So, yeah, simple, straightforward.
Comments, questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the motion to approve the resolution authorizing extension of the fairground lease with St. Croix County Fair, Inc. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. It's amazing how quickly these go as the night gets longer. All right, our last business item. Resolution requesting the governor of Wisconsin and state legislature to enact a comprehensive and sustainable transportation funding solution. Assuming this comes from the Transportation Committee, do we have a motion? Oh,
Yeah, thank you. Make a motion that we pass resolution number 10, resolution requesting the governor of Wisconsin and state legislature to enact a comprehensive and sustainable transportation funding solution.
and a second, Supervisor Hanson. Okay, Robbie, you're hanging in there. Good for you.
Must have made Christine mad to get put last on the agenda.
I would love to talk all night about sustainable transportation planning, but I'm pretty sure this group isn't ready all right. This comes from the WCA, Wisconsin Counties Association, in partnership with the Wisconsin County Highway Association. We're working to raise awareness that the last few budget cycles, there's about $1 billion hole that's being filled in the transportation fund by general purpose revenue, which is going to lead to problems down the road, including programs that we've been highly successful in and receive significant funding for our county transportation system. So this resolution is really good at raising awareness, and we're trying to work with all 72 counties as well as the leading municipalities and the Wisconsin Counties Association to ensure our legislators are aware that there is a transportation cliff that we're approaching, and how we approach that cliff is going to be important in the next budget cycle. So this resolution is to try to raise that awareness as well as start the conversation. If you notice, there's not a solution in there. There's a problem. We need to not take any pieces off the table and discuss what's the best thing for Wisconsin's transportation system.
Questions, comments? Yes, Supervisor Burning.
Yeah, so I got some concerns on like 53 down. Provides adequate and reliable revenue growth for efficient long-term planning and execution of state and local transportation programs. I like great roads, and you've done a great job maintaining our county roads. What does that mean? And number 3, adjust any and new existing transportation user fees and other revenue mechanisms to sustain purchasing power in order to maintain and improve Wisconsin's transportation infrastructure. The vagueness of that tells me CPI-linked automatic increases for road funding. Like, that's the first thing that pops out to me on those. What are we pushing for? Because you start giving like blanket instructions to the legislature, like, hey, figure out ways to get us more money. I don't always like the way that they, find out ways to get more money for us. So what do you guys mean by that? Or what do you mean by that? Or what does the Highway Association and the Counties Association mean by that?
So back to the conversation, I think the goal is to not take things off the table in the platform of the election, taking stances, we will not do this or we will not do that. Have a conversation that saying, what is the best way to provide that sustainable transportation funding? We've seen these cliffs before, right, where we maybe raise a registration fee, 10 years later, 8 years later, 6 years later, we're having a conversation that the purchasing power of that increase has been reduced by inflation. So I think long-term, what we're discussing here in the this is the WCA's resolution in general, is how do we get to a point where we can properly plan our transportation system, not only for now, but 4 or 5 years from now, and say, this is sustainable in the long term, not just for the short period of time.
So where have we in St. Croix County fallen short on this? We just passed an additional, I don't like this term, but it is what it's called, a wheel tax. That doubled or almost doubled that line item revenue. What are we missing? Like, what are we falling short on here?
Sure, so one of the things I would urge you to consider is that in this transportation funding that we're talking about, this $1 billion hole, there's a number of programs that we utilize and we get lots of funding for our system from. We've been very successful in the grant programs. Part of that $1 billion funds LRIP supplemental, which is one-time funding, 3 bienniums now. Without that funding, we have been very successful in that grant writing program and taken that as an applied direction in the system. So part of the transportation funding that we are receiving is money from this. That's what makes our system go. We have also been very successful in the federal programs, highway safety improvement. One roundabout is approaching $3 million. We have 5 of them in scope, and we've received funding, federal or state funding on all of them. Without some of this sustainable funding, if that funding goes away, now we have to locally fund roundabouts. One $3 million roundabout is 3/5 of the county's entire construction budget for the year. It's just not sustainable.
So
without these programs, if they're at risk in the budget, which they are, if they go away, we will have to fill a bigger hole on that.
Yeah, totally. I also I understand all that, but not being allowed to take things off the table. I don't like this as it's written. I'm not going to support it. However, I will say this: you guys have done a really good job, and we have a really good transportation department. Because look at Eau Claire. If you live in the city of Eau Claire, that's not cool. You get hit by the city with a wheel tax. You get hit by the county with a wheel tax on top of your registration. So I'm not going to support this as it's worded, but I do understand what you're up against, and I think we do a good job here in St. Croix County without having to do this.
Supervisor Rambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And being a GTA guy, general transportation aids, years ago when I first started at the county was 30% of our reportable expenses. And over the years, the legislature, the governor, waves a flag every time they fund it, and they say, we've contributed another 20 million or so, whatever the 2 million, whatever the number is, but that's the numerator. And it used to be 30% of what we spend, and the numerator will grow, but not as fast as the denominator. The denominator is how much we're spending, and the formula promotes counties and towns, cities, and villages to fund their own projects with their own funding, and the state will, with the registration fees, not wheel tax, registration fees, I hate that word. There's not a tax on the wheel in the back. It's a registration fee. It's not 5 wheels. No, but anyway, the registration fee and the fuel tax gets put in one pot, and the legislature busts it up. County gets this much, towns get this much, cities and villages get this much, and the county's portion has shrunk from 30% down to 20? 19% or whatever. I used to track it, and that's telling us that the state is not putting in as much funding as the counties are, and that denominator is growing a lot faster than the numerator, but yet they parade on how much they give us. And I think that's one of the things that is going to be spoken to about a lot before. But one of the problems is some counties were taking the transportation funding and reducing the highway department levy accordingly. That's why they froze it, because they didn't want that. It was supposed to be in addition to, not instead of. So we got stung there for a while. A couple bad apples were doing that, and we had to pay the consequences. Now, these types of things are going to help us with all those it's a smorgasbord of funding mechanisms, and I think that's why it's vague, like Robbie says, to get them to the table. Thank you.
Supervisor Shirley?
I don't disagree with what you're trying to accomplish. I just think that we need something that's worded for what we actually want. Because we ran into this with the mental health facility. Well, we said to the state of Wisconsin, we want a mental health facility. Well, if they build it on the other side of the state, it doesn't matter. So if we go to the state, and the Assembly and the Senate get these all the time. Like, we want more money, we want more money, we want more money, but if we don't tell them what we actually want and what we actually need, what are they gonna do with it? I think it creates a conversation, but it doesn't, I think we need more than that.
Can I just clarify too that this is from the Wisconsin Counties Association? So this is the resolution that they're pushing and presumably are getting other counties to sign on to as a larger force, correct?
The goal is to have all 72 counties adopt it.
Okay,
And this is language directly from the Wisconsin Counties Association.
thank you. Supervisor Bernie?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this stems back to a wild tale of us asking the legislature, hey, we want a little bit more of that sales tax revenue. And we passed a resolution here that said, hey, we counties want a little bit more of that sales tax revenue. I flagged a concern, almost to the point of what Supervisor Shirley said. We in St. Croix County need to be more specific about what we want, because we're going to get the short end of the stick, being a fast-growing county, having plenty, not plenty of levy, but a very well-off county that can fund a lot of what we need to do. What happened when the legislature and the governor passed the sales tax, redistribution back up here? Our county did not receive the proportionate amount of dollars that we would send down compared to other counties that were deemed necessary through the new formula. So that is why I'm hesitant to just vote on a resolution that says, hey, we join in on all of our other counties because we just want more funding. You're going to find that St. Croix County is not going to probably get what we're thinking we're going to get unless we are specific.
Supervisor Van Summeren?
I think, again, we have to keep in mind there's a whole lot more clout with 72 entities coming to the table. And I think that's why it's written this way. This is not something that St. Croix County, that Robbie wrote up, that this was something that the counties did. And, we have gotten, as Robbie has said over and over again, and tonight a couple of times too, we have been the beneficiaries of this in unimaginable ways. They have continued to give us money, and what was just said that, well, we can't get what we want up here. There will never be enough money in St. Croix County to build the roads the way Robbie wants them. We will not see that because he wants everyone to be smooth and last forever. But this is, so what do? We tell them? We put Band-Aids on, this is a Band-Aid. But it's a pretty broad Band-Aid because there's 72 people behind us, rather than St. Croix County coming to the governor and saying, hey, we need more money. And they say, okay, and that's where it would stop. So that's why I think this is very important that we join together. Does this mean we can't ask for more in a different way? No. Take what you can get. We've got a lot of people behind us. Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson?
I so much agree with that, Supervisor Summeren. The transportation has been such a challenge since fuel-efficient cars came online, electric cars came online, and the gas tax hasn't been raised since 2009?
They stopped indexing in 05.
05. Right, so it gets harder and harder and harder to maintain the roads, and maintaining roads gets more and more and more expensive. And if we went out on our own and said, this is how we want to do things, well, they'd think we want to be like Dane County because they're not part of the WCA. They think we want to be like Little Madison. And I don't want to make that problem. I think we need to be part of a larger effort. and sign on. So I would just think we should make a decision. Either we like it or we don't. It's not our place really to parse it at this point.
Okay, final comments. Supervisor Shirley.
I guess I look at this the same way as, say, education. You know, we could say we would like more money for our schools, and all the counties say that, all the school districts say that, and what had happened in, 2-3 years ago? They gave it all to Milwaukee. So what do we do if we're sending this forward saying 72 of us, hopefully, whatever, all say this, so the legislature is going to look at it and be like, okay, now what? I mean, it's like when we get emails on hot topic issues and we get the copy paste. I don't pay attention to those as much as I do the individual ones because I know what all of them are. It's the same thing. You're just going to get glossed over, and that's my concern with this. Is that down in Madison, this is going to get glossed over versus whether compared to if we were to actually write something of what we actually want.
Any other, Supervisor Telejohn?
There's no reason why we can't write our own resolution later. I agree with Van Summeren that we should be all on the same page initially, and as Robbie says, this is just the beginning of a conversation.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote. And the motion on the floor is to approve the resolution requesting the governor and state legislature to enact comprehensive sustainable transportation funding solution. And that motion passes 14-2. Thank you. All right, that wraps up our agenda, our business items for tonight. Any requests for future agenda items? Supervisor Roan.
I have a request for a future business item. It occurred to me after watching the public comments, specifically in regard to 10 Mile, in the meetings I attended live and in the pre-recordings I reviewed from last year, that we as a board have two problems, one of which we're addressing, which is the legal aspect of what we do with the PSC and so forth. What can we do? What should we do? The other one that we've got, which I don't think we've addressed, is the issue of all the misinformation that's floating around out there around the county that's really been brought to visibility through these public comments. Just a lot of misinformation. There's no other way to go around it. So what I'd like to request is a resolution instructing the staff to develop a solar project information page on the county website or something along those lines that would be referred to the Community Development Committee as the community of jurisdiction. They could take it up on February 19th, and if recommended, bring it back to the board on March 3rd for approval. I think that's one of our obligations to help the county and its citizens get through this very contentious topic.
Other requests for future agenda items? Supervisor Rice.
I would like to learn more about the kinds of scams, in particular those that are targeting seniors. I understand that there was another one recently that I would like to know more about that, and perhaps that'll lead us down a path of allowing a resource to give people alerts or be a resource for phone calls or something.
Could you speak up, Supervisor Rice? We can't hear you at all over here.
I have never been told I was quiet in my whole life, so my mother would love this. I asked for a topic so that we can learn more about the kinds of scams that seniors are on the receiving end of.
I think HHS would be most appropriate for that particular item. As far as the misinformation on the solar field, probably would be admin.
You think admin or community development?
Community development, I'm sorry, you're right. Community development. Better choice. Okay, any other requests for future agenda items? Announcements. Oh, Supervisor Fiedler.
Just on behalf of the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee, we'd like to thank, we gave her our appreciation, but to thank a 3-decade-long county employee, Janet Smith, who is our staff support for the last, forever, at least the last 8 years. And she did an outstanding job for us behind the scenes, and just wanted to share with the county board the appreciation of all members of the PPJ for her service both to us and to the Emergency Management Division of the Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? All right, it is 7:48. We're finally adjourned.